Well, that just didn't work out, did it? Anyway, this is Cassandra Williamson, and this is the Path Forward, and these are my thoughts from the hollers of Eastern Kentucky, just so you know, okay? So I hope you've had a good day. It's been interesting. It hasn't been real hot here today either, which has been pretty good. It's been cooler than normal. It's supposed to be back in the 80s sometime later this week, low 80s, upper 70s, but overnight in the 50s. So, it's not too bad here in the hollers of Eastern Kentucky. So we've got a couple of things I wanted to talk about it today. And the first thing is I want to go over to the website and show you something. And if you're not signed up to the website, you need to go there and do that. And here is the link to the website, www.cassandra-llc.com. Go there and find the subscribe button in the menu button. Click on that, and then you can go down through there and subscribe. There's several options for you to subscribe if you'd like to. One is free, and the other two are paid, monthly and annually. The paid subscriptions give you access to some of the research that takes place that I've been doing and working on, and all of that is very important. But access to that does require a paid subscription, and that research is more in-depth. It's for the academics out there and the people who are, a nerd like me. And that brings up the topic of the tools. And there's a toolkit that I've created. It's also over on the menu site and the menu button. And I'm going to share a screen really quickly so you can see what I'm talking about on the website. I'm actually there now on my other screen. So here you can see that's the front page of the website. And the menu button is up in there, up in the upper right-hand corner. So I can increase this. Well, if I do that, everything will blow off the page. So I'm going to click on the menu button. Then you can go down through here to the Path Forward, which there'll be live streaming there at that button. So I'm not going to click on that one. Middays there, adversarial collaboration framework. That's something that I think is really important. We'll talk about that another time again. You can subscribe at the subscribe button right there. It draws a line through it whenever you rest on it. So click there. And then you got the research and about and videos and blogs. So let's go to the blog really quickly. And let me see when it pops up here. So on the first part, you got all the lists of things here on the website, the different blog posts that have been published. And the one today that I wanted to key on is the tools for our toolkit. And by that, I mean the tools we need to fight the good fight, the tools we need to be able to move the electorate, the middle of the electorate. Those people actually do vote, go and vote. And they're typically the independents, the people in the middle who make decisions based on good, bad, indifferent, their own code. They don't base it on the political parties per se. So they're in the middle of the country. So they're middle of the electorate. So we're trying to reach those people. And this toolkit gives you some things to do and not do, and gives you some scripts to follow. So I'm going to just give you a brief rundown. I'm going to click on it so that you can see what I'm doing. Tools for the good fight. All right. So the first thing is you have a blueprint, the blueprint at the top, a united front for a new era. You can go into that. That kind of explains everything a little bit better. This new era passive resistance is not an option. Yeah, passive resistance is not an option. But that also does not mean you go out and throw rocks and stones at people's vehicles or the government's vehicles, or you do not break the windows on cars. You don't go banging on people or pushing the federal employees or the National Guard or ICE or anyone. If you do that, you're taking yourself off the street. So I don't mind the people out here protesting and things, but the moment it turns violent, where somebody or their property gets damaged, we don't want that. So 5 talking points. You can go to the next one down. Is 5 talking points. Winning the war of words. And this one is crucial because since Friday at noontime on midday, I started talking about some words and things that just people's eyes glaze over when you talk about those words, you use those words, and they get really defensive and angry about it. And so you got to find a way to say things that actually are not academic sounding and, well, in my case, it'd be nerdish. I have that ability to put people off, and I have to apologize for that because it's not my intent to put people off. I want to hear people. I do, I really do. And sometimes I just come across as being aloof or arrogant about it, or just, make people feel as if what they know is not worth what I know. And I don't want that. For that, I have to apologize repeatedly, because that's not what we need and not what I need either. Shoot, I'm 66. I can say what I want usually, but you have to be respectful of the people around you and where you are. And that's the thing that's difficult for most of us, because we want to just go in and go, this is the way it's supposed to be. And no, no, you can't demand those things. But anyway, there's a lot of words out there. Like the one that really bothers me and bothers a lot of people probably is birthing person. Birthing person. Give me a break. And another one, I'll explain that in just a second. A birthing person. Well, okay. A birthing person does cover a lot of territory. The reason it was chosen is because, there are trans men, those people who started out as female and they transitioned to male. They still have the capability of making babies. Okay. They can still get pregnant, and some of them can, not all of them. And they have the uterus, and they can carry that baby to term if they wanted to. Their gender is male, but their biological sex, that's XX. Genetic sex, I should say. So they're able to do the reproduction stuff. That's trans men can do that. And that's why they say birthing parent or birthing person or something like that. But it's offensive to most of the country. So we have to watch those things. And I mean, look, you don't need to walk on eggshells, and you need to be as authentic as possible as you can be, but realize where you are. And we're trying to pull the middle of the country to support our ideas, right? That's what we're trying to do. Bring people in to actually be able to see that, hey, this is actually pretty reasonable over here. But right now, everybody looking at us over on the left side of the political divide, they see a bunch of whacks and quacks and all kinds of stupid crap. Point in case, the DNC convention or meeting or whatever that took place in the middle of the country over the weekend. The very first thing they get up there to do is say that we're here on stolen land. Now look, stop already. Stop already. Jeez, I have used terms like that in the past, but I'm usually talking to somebody who is actually, who knows what I mean by that. Knows what it means. And there's a whole academic stuff all behind that. But we should not be putting ourselves out there that way, because it just throws everyone off. People's eyes glaze over and they don't even want to talk to you or hear you anymore. Half the country, more than half of the country, some of the center left, will look at that and listen to that, and they'll go, no, I'm going to switch on something, go do something else, because that's just goofy. We're here. It's true that Andrew Jackson shoved the Indians across the country from the east on the Trail of Tears, and we went through and tried to decimate the Indians across the country, and we did force them off their lands and things. That's true. But if we are also, let me just rephrase all that. We've got to stop using things that actually play into the hands of the right, the extreme right. Stop already, folks. Get out of the echo chamber and listen to ordinary people talk like up here in the holler. Phew. If you want some of those other words that have been used out there and all that, well, the next thing down on this list is, was it something I said? Now, this is by Third Way. It's a nonprofit organization, and they wrote this on the 21st. This is the same day that I started talking about it, and I don't know who said it first or put it out first, but it doesn't matter. on the same day we started putting this stuff out and talking about language we use. Theirs is much more focused just on the words, and I happen to kind of go into different ways of talking about it. Pontificating or talking head on it. The next thing is how to craft and deploy emotionally charged rhetoric effectively, and here's the key, and ethically. Countering Trumpism, a united front for liberals, Democrats, and transgender Americans. Go there, click on that, click on this toolkit over on the blog post, go to the website, click on the menu button and go down and find that very first one, Tools for Our Toolkit. Tools to help you fight the good fight. Obviously, fighting the good fight comes from John Lewis, Representative John Lewis, okay? Just so you know, that term, we're borrowing it from there. Okay, now the next thing I wanted to talk about was some things that happened today, but I'm going to drop off this screen real quickly. Stop sharing the screen. I'm going back to me. First thing, thank you so much for watching. This has been a really interesting day. President signed several executive orders today. Some of them stand out and some of his comments stand out in a huge way. So from now on, well, not just now on, but for the foreseeable future, or as long as I can remember to do so, let me put it like that. We need to start calling President Trump the President of Europe, because he said that. He said that the European leaders are starting to call him the President of Europe on live TV today. He said that. America first, anybody? Anyway, he said that that's what they're calling him, and he said that he kind of likes that. But see, I've mentioned this in the past. Trump's mentality, Trump's psychology is such that he's very transactional, very transactional. You, in order for him to give you anything, you've got to give him something back. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It works. He's successful at it. And he's good at taking the world by the hand and going, come on, we got to do that or this, or I'll just knock you over the head with a tariff. He's good at doing all that. Okay. All right. But his view of himself is not just the president of Europe, which he stated publicly today that he actually likes that, but he would love to be the General Secretary of the United Nations. He's familiar with that. He's been there. He knows the UN inside and out. He lives, his towers are near there, close to it. I mean, I've been there, a beautiful place, beautiful campus there in the middle of Manhattan, in New York. I don't know if it's Manhattan or not, but it's in New York. So that's how he sees himself. Not just the president of Europe, but the president of Asia, the president of Africa, the president of all the Americas, president of all the islands, president of the world. That's his mentality. Now, let me tell you, I'm going to just say this really loudly, okay, really clearly, so you can see what I'm talking about. After World War II, now I hope this is not going down a rabbit hole with you. Just hang on tight. Hang on tight. Don't run off and hide. After World War II, the only nation left standing that had any kind of economic power or military power was the United States in the entire world. The others had been decimated so badly that they could not compete with us economically or militarily. The only way that the Soviet Union could was to start building nuclear weapons, which they started to do, which distracted the United States from its main goal of actually building a stable world. That's what the United Nations was initially all about, is to establish a stable world to prevent another world war like the last one, World War II. That's what it was all about. The reason we have not been able to succeed at that is because we have been distracted. The United States allowed itself to be distracted. All of these little things come up. They're valid things. They had to be addressed. No doubt about it. But we had to deal with communism, and we had to make sure that they didn't beat us to the moon. So we focused on a lot of that, which actually created a lot of new technologies that we actually use today. That was good. But we ended up in Southeast Asia, Korea, Kosovo, Central America, and South America. We ended up all over the darn place, putting out little fires. We became like, I don't know, the firefighters for the world. But that was not our original purpose. The purpose after World War II was for us to build a stable world where we in the United States could succeed and the whole world be improved in the process. We abdicated that responsibility and turned our back on it. The one thing, now this is another story, another article that I put out here. Another thing that there's really a dichotomy with Trump for me. One, I applaud what he has done on the world stage, bringing all these countries in and kind of moving us back toward that initial hegemonic role that we had after World War II. That I applaud, because that's what's needed. That stability needs to be there. And if we have to use a heavy hand to do it, fine. But we've got to build that stability because our peace depends on that. It's connected. You can isolate yourself and close off all your borders and walls and close yourself in and not let anybody in or out or anything like that. And it won't take long for someone to start, besieging the walls, pushing it in, and causing trouble for you. It won't take long for that to happen. So you really have to, a castle's easily defeated. All it takes is just wearing them down to make sure they run out of everything, right? So that I applaud Trump on. But the thing that I cannot stand and cannot abide is his attacks on transgender Americans. We've known that that's what he wanted to do. He spent $200 million in ads that were very effective, pushing back against trans people and the fact that Kamala Harris actually supported trans Americans. That short little quip that was in that ad. She's for they, them, and I'm for you. It was very effective. It pulled a lot of votes in for Trump. But his attack on trans people, we have got, that narrative is gone, folks. You can go out and march up and down the street, pound on the Heritage Foundation door, which I've done and been in there. So you can go and do all of those things, and it will have zero impact on the course that is laid before us right now. That's not to say that you can't do those things or shouldn't do those things. Absolutely, because if you did not, they would think that we're just letting them run over us. So you got to put up a little bit of a fight for the appearance, for the sake of the appearance of the fight, at least. But don't go be violent or don't throw rocks at buildings and cars and people or attacking them. And God forbid, if you're a transgender person and you're doing that and you get caught doing it, you have done damage to not only the Democratic Party, but to the trans community as well. So police yourself. Stop with the craziness out here. If I'm not mistaken, I heard it on the news this morning, early on. One of the people who was throwing rocks at vans in LA was a trans woman. Actually got caught. Alice or Angie or something like that. I don't know the last name, but she was throwing rocks at ICE vehicles. Windows were smashed. That does more, that right there, even though it's just one person out of a million of us, even though that's just that one, it causes damage to the whole freaking community. Stop already. Phew. Let me get this microphone closer. Stop already. Think of others besides just your darn self. And here's the thing. If you're just thinking of protecting the illegal immigrants, which there is due process that needs to be gone through, but they're here illegally. The process has to work from that side. You might not like it, but the due process part says they've got to be picked up, put in the court system, and addressed. Unlike what Trump is doing right now or wants to do right now, which is pick them up, send them to Uganda or send them to El Salvador or send them to Colombia or Venezuela or somewhere else. There's a process that you need to use. It's there. It's in the constitutional system. It's in the law system in this country. And yeah, they're here illegally. And yeah, not all, but some are actually doing horrendous crimes against Americans and against people. And all it takes is, like we just said about the trans person, the trans woman who throws stones at an ICE vehicle, all they have to do on the right is take that one example of an illegal immigrant who is raping a child or killing someone or destroying stuff or leading MS-13, anything like that, that one illegal immigrant becomes the face against all illegal immigrants. They keep hounding on that. They'll hound on it and pound on it and pound on it and pound on it, and to the point where many people are beginning to think that all illegal immigrants are also violent criminals, which is not true. We know that's not the case. They're here illegally, yes, but they are not violent criminals. Get them into the due process court system, use the due process in the court system, and address it from there, but use the system the way it's designed to be used. Put enough people in there to make sure this is done correctly and humanely, and then address those things. But Trump's attack on trans people, though, all it takes is one. It doesn't really matter from their perspective. They have been after trans people and broadly LGBT people for decades. Literally decades. 5, 6 decades. You can go all the way back to 1950. When they first, or the 1946, when that word was changed in the King James Bible to reflect homosexuality, when it did not mean that in the original text. But they put that in there because they really had a gripe against, gays and lesbians. That we were here, the transgender people were there too. As a matter of fact, they were the first ones rounded up by Germany. And, well, no, they weren't the first. They were the second bunch. The first bunch were the homeless people. They started rounding up the homeless people because they were making the cities look bad in Germany in the 30s and putting them in concentration camps. Homeless people. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Oh, I don't know why. Anyway, yeah. And then the next one were the ones with the pink triangle. That's what they gave to gays, lesbians, and those whose gender didn't match their sex. And there were quite a few there. They actually had organizations that supported them in Germany. The Institute of Sexuality. Something like that. Hopefully I didn't bastardize that too much. But that was there, folks, in the 20s and 30s. This stuff has been going on forever in human history. And probably even all the way on back to our great times 100 grandparents. Cro-Magnon man and Neanderthal and all the interbreeding that took place back then. Yeah, that one. Yeah. We were there then too, but there's no record of it. But we know we were, because genetic diversity creates those things, right? Right. Yes, it does. However, Trump thinks, believes, and wants to be considered as the Secretary General of the United Nations. He loves the idea of being called the President of Europe. He said it today. The other things he did today in the White House, well, let me see. Flag burning ban. 1 year in jail for burning the U.S. flag. And over on X, the conversations were around, but I want to, it's only right that if you can burn the U.S. flag, you ought to be able to burn the trans pride flag too. And that was actually said over there. And then another person chimes in with 2 little points. So It's hateful to burn. If it's hateful to burn a trans pride flag, it's also hateful to burn a U.S. flag. And their other point was closely related to that. And my response back to that was, yeah, fine. It really does bother me greatly when I see the flag burning, our U.S. flag, the one I served in defense of, actually the Constitution that represents that, represented by that flag. So it is offensive for me to see that. It's actually like dragging your fingernails over a chalkboard to me. I understand that it is, according to the Supreme Court from back in, what was it, 70s or 80s? They actually ruled and said that it is protected speech. The thing they didn't tell you that you could do was grab it from someone else's property or off of their building or off of their vehicle, or jerk it out of their hands and then go burn it, because then what you are doing is hateful and it is destructive of property. If that rule applies to that, then it should also apply when a trans person is out here protesting and marching. But the trans pride flag, and any flag really should, if they're standing up in front of a building or somewhere like that and you go take it off and burn it, you've just committed a felony, or at least a misdemeanor, because you took personal property and destroyed it. But to go buy your own, you can go out and buy your own pride flag, pay your own money for it, and you can do whatever you want with that thing. You can burn it. Shoot, you could smoke it if you wanted to. And if you buy a U.S. flag, you can do the same thing. If you are the one to buy it, you can do that. The challenge is if you do it in public and people get really angry about it, burning the U.S. flag. People also can get angry about burning the trans pride flag. So we have to kind of be careful. We're walking that line right there. And the other thing that came out in the conference today with all the EOs was, we already knew that over the weekend, the National Guard in D.C. were authorized to carry pistols. And the images in my head are from the 1960s at Ohio State. 4 dead at Ohio State in Ohio. 9 were wounded. 70-some shots were fired into the crowd of students who were protesting the Vietnam War. But more to the point, they were protesting the lies the government was telling them about the ending, supposedly, of the war, and that they were being underhanded about it. On one hand, they were saying, we're not going to put any more troops over there, we're going to do this. And on the other hand, they were in Paris talking and making new arrangements for things that they didn't want the American public to know about. But the American public caught on because the media was over there in Vietnam and they could see what was going on, okay? They knew what was happening. And it got reported back, and the students were pissed about it. And not just students, there are a lot of people pissed about it. So, fine. National Guard now has pistols in D.C. I hope that we do not end up with somebody getting killed. I know our National Guard troops are definitely highly trained and highly skilled. They know what they're doing, but so were they in the 60s. With that, come back tomorrow. Let's have a great day. And let's see what else we can get into tomorrow. More thoughts from the hollers of Eastern Kentucky. Have a great one, everyone. I'm going to check the chat, though, before I go. Hold on, let me see. Junior, I call him two-week-old taco. Bad taste, bad smell, rotten to the core. Yeah. Yep. Gotcha. Yay. Everyone, see you tomorrow.